Okay, so far we've created tools with the open object, the closed object, the ellipse and the rectangle. Now when we create those shapes, especially with a fill, then the software applies a stitch angle, a default stitch angle of 45 degrees. So let me just do a closed object quickly. With a step fill. Enter, and I need to show the stitches. Right, so here is my step fill. Now if I go out of True View, so click T on your keyboard or click on the Show Artistic View icon here and zoom in, you can see that all the stitches, you can see some stitches going this way. This is the underlay, which is automatically created when you create your shape, and then all the cover stitches are actually going in the same angle, 45 degrees this way. If I bring it back into True View, you can probably see, it's a bit harder to see in True View, but you can see that they're all going in the same angle throughout the whole shape. Now sometimes you want the stitches to be going at different angles around a shape. So there is one way of doing this is to use the block digitizing tool. So I'll just select that object and delete it. So you can select an object by clicking on the object, or you can select the object by clicking on it in the color film. So I'm going to, and then you can just hit your delete button and that will delete it. I could have used the undo button up here, but I chose to delete it. There's often lots of ways of doing things in the software. Right, so the block digitizing tool is here in your digitize toolbox, so you can just select it. Now, so you can use left or right clicks. I'll start with just left clicks, and this will give me straight lines. Remember when we were digitizing before, a left click gave us a straight line and a right click gave us a curve. So we're going to use 2 left clicks to start our object. So I'm going to left click, and you'll see you've got a string, and then you left click again, and you've still got a string. You need to come back to the first side of your digitizing and left click again, and then you can you can make this any length you like. These lines that join the 2 outside lines are your angles. So the first angle is here is almost horizontal, and then I'm going to do a 45 degree angle roughly. The little measurement is telling me how long or how wide my stitching is for the object. So if you're doing satin stitch, that's important. I'm making a very big object here, but never mind, we'll just continue on. So if I left click here, I've created that angle and I've created a block, and now I'm attached back over here. So I can create my next block. So I can left click here and left click here to create my next block. Left click here, left click here to create my next block. So you're basically clicking on each side of the object that you're creating, and when you're happy with your shape, so I'll make one more block here, you can hit enter to create the stitches. And as you can see, the stitches are radiating out. If I go out of True View and zoom in, you can see that my stitches are radiating out in those angles. If I go, there is a tool called the reshape tool that you can reshape objects with, and that's up here next to the select tools. If you click on that, it will actually show you those angles here with the little orange handles, and if you hover over them, they'll tell you what the exact angle is. That one's 109, this one's 69, this one's 42, and this one is, oh, there isn't one there because that's just the outside. And same on the inside, it'll tell you if you hover over those as well. So this creates angles, as I said, around the object. You can, let me zoom out and make a much smaller object over here. You can get your tool again, and you can have a very small block going to a wider block. going to a wider block, back to a smaller block, enter. So you can create, and as you can see the stitches are radiating out. You can create all sorts of shapes like this. As I mentioned before, we can use right clicks as well. So if I right click and right click and right click and right click, it won't curve until I get to the second block. Now you can see it's starting to curve. So my blocks, my outside shapes are curved, but my angles are still straight, indicating the angle of the stitching. So they were all right clicks, and I've got this curved outer edge. Let me try and do another shape. So two very close together, two wide apart, two closer together, and two closer together. And you can do them very close together as well by zooming in. So almost next to each other, and then enter. So again, you're just creating your blocks. In this case, most of my angles were almost straight, so this hasn't created a lot of different angles. But they do vary slightly. So it all depends whether you're going around a shape or whether you're just creating a block, which sort of digitizing you'll use. Go back to true view so you can see all of those. They're all very big objects. Let me just select them all and shrink them down. I can select with a box select. So that's using my select tool, left clicking and dragging a box around all the objects. That's selected them all, and I can shrink them all at once. Okay, so that's a little bit more obvious when they're this small. And you can see the stitches here start to bunch up where they're coming in closer and closer together. If I go out of true view again and we look at the needle points, let me just get a different coloured background for you. Edit that and use this light blue. Okay, so you can really see those needle points bunching up, but if you look very closely as well, you can see that some of the stitches don't come all the way to the edge, and the software will do this automatically to prevent you from having too dense a stitching where the angles come in tightly together. So you don't need to panic too much about your angles causing bunching up of stitching. There is a saving grace in the way that the software works out where to stop the stitching to prevent that happening. Now you can also use a combination of left and right clicks. So let me demonstrate that for you. So I'm going to go to my digitize toolbox, click on it to expand it, get my block digitizing tool, and I'm going to start with left clicks, close together this time, and then I'm going to do right click, a 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 right click. Now I'm going to switch to left clicks. Left click, left click, left click, left click. And you can see now my lines have become straight again. My outside edges have become straight again. And I can go back to right clicks. And again, I have to wait till the next block before they'll take effect. And when I'm happy with my shape, I can enter. So let's zoom in here. And let's go to that reshape tool and have a look at those angles. Okay, so you can see here they're going here where I went across from one side of the shape to the other. If you're not happy with those, you can actually move them, those angles. So you just left click on one of the handles and move it, and you can see here that that moved the stitching to follow this new angle I put. Same here, I can move this one, and you can see that changes the angle of the stitching, but I'll go into that further when I do the video on the reshaping tool. Okay, so have a play with the block digitizing tool and then move on to the freehand tools.